2, 3, 4. So that's the very well-known riff from Who Did You Think I Was by Mr. John Mayer. Let's dive right into it. The first two measures pretty much lay out that iconic riff. And you notice that the first measure ends on an upstroke. And that's due to the way Mayer strikes notes in certain directions. So 8th notes are always downstrokes, and there's enough time to come up and reset. 16th notes, like the muted strumming, are down-ups like that. So we're actually ending up on an upstroke on that last one. So you really want to keep that in mind. So slow, we have the thumb broom handle grip on the E5, sliding up into a 2-note thing here, and we're using our first and third fingers. Muted down, up, hammer on here, another muted down, up, and then on the E8 and the D5, this kind of thing with a slight bend at the end. And then measure 2 is similar with a different ending. We're ending on the A5. So both of those slow. And the other thing to keep in mind is we're ending on an upstroke on that first one. So that's the first one, and then when the band comes in, there's a slight variation. Did you hear it? It's actually at the A7 preceding the hammer-on. Like that. So on an upstroke, and then it's pretty much the same. So slow. And these notes creep into where the muted strummings are. When I first heard this song, the rhythm to me that stood out was, because that's kind of the rhythm he's using. When the singing starts, the guitar goes on autopilot a bit, and even more notes creep in place of those muted strums. So we have this happening. So pretty much most of the singing parts, I got half a smile, zero shame, have this thing going on underneath. Like that, and those are pretty much the 3 variations. Let's go through them just really quickly. There's the which is the mutes there. Then there's the one where we introduce the A7. And then the singing part is like this. And the parts where he isn't singing, he reverts back to one of the first 2 we heard. So. So you'll see them in the tab. Just before he starts singing, we often have this. One other thing I almost forgot, there's a weird thing in measure 11 at the 21-second mark. So instead of doing the C note here, he goes down to a G. But you don't see him move down to that. In fact, his thumb lifts off at that point. I've stared at it hundreds of times. I don't know what's going on. So if you want to throw that in there, it's a different variation. That's measure 11. There's 2 pre-choruses in the song, 2 types of them. The first one we hear at measure 13 sounds like this. And then back into the regular song. So that first one starts off at the F sharp minor position. We hit the root note at the E2 twice. Then we do this, we have a bar on the second fret of the G and B. And we're hammering on to the G4. And then back again, sounding the two notes. Then we have a little rundown. Kind of like a minor blues thing. And we're bending this A2 to take the place of the flat fifth. I'll show you what I mean. Instead of doing this, we're doing this. Very subtle. And the first time he plays it through, he plays it like that. Afterwards, he's just doing the all notes. Let's play that slow with the bend part. And then slow with the typical note rundown. Like that. And then we move up into a G position. So thumb moves to the third fret of the E, same rhythm, and our chord changes a bit. We have first finger on G2, second finger on B3, hammering on in the same spot again. And this rundown is a bit different. And we do an eighth note on the last note. So we hang out there for a bit before going back up into the riff. One more time. Very, very cool. This is different every pass on the track. He does all kinds of... Sometimes he ends off with an open E. Sometimes it's an eighth note on the G. Sometimes there's some neat thumb sliding into the riff. All kinds of stuff there. But that's a basic generic pre-chorus, the first one. John Mayer throws a lot of licks in between the verses in this song, and the first one we see is in measure 20, and it sounds like this. So he starts the riff off normally. Then we have this bend at B8. We strike it again and bend it down, and then two note per string, following with a three noter, like that. And I want people to hit this with a down, up, down, up, down, up. Doesn't matter because we're finished. Because anytime you have a two note per string scale, you want to start on the down and then end on the up, because then your pick is in the air to go into the next string channel. You hit it with a down, hit the other note with the up. Oh, we can change strings. Anytime you're changing strings, always change strings on an upstroke. The tendency for this kind of lick is, because it's a bent, hit it with a downstroke. First one with a down, second one with a down. This isn't good, because then if you're alternate picking, you're going to be up, down, and that's just weird. But it's much better. So from the top. And respect the pickings. So the second type of pre-chorus that I was talking about occurs in measure 25. It sounds like this. Always going back into the verse riff again. So that's an F sharp minor, which we strum the root of and then the whole chord. And then there's this rhythmic thing at the end. That's You Got My Number, But You Always Knew the Score is the lyric there. So that's an F sharp minor. Into a G add 9 with an E in the root. Let me just arpeggiate that. And you're really going to want to accent that E5 in the last note. before going into this nice open, open, 3, open. Yeah, that second G add 9 with the E in the root. Very nice. And that riff is nice. So one more time, slow. That reminds me of the James Bond chord. Anyways, that's pre-chorus 2. Measure 32 has fill 2, which is the famous one that turns the ladies on that you hear people talking about in the forums. And that takes up a whole measure space, so it comes after one of these. And it's slightly unusual that we come up high for it at the E8 to E10, and I think that's just the pentatonic improvisational computer choosing notes where he knows they are. It would probably be easier to go on the A3 and A5. So what we're doing there is 2 notes. We have the shape here, bring it up 2 frets twice, and then a bend at the G7, and then pick it unbent. Into speed. First solo starts in measure 40, and we have a lead up into it coming out of the rhythm. And there's a lot of weird type things. So we'll be learning how to do the, which is a very cool thing. Sounds like this. Anyways, didn't do that at the end. But let's stop there, first 4 measures, and see what we got. I'll play through it slow, follow the tab mostly, but we start off with the regular rhythm. And then get into this stuff, leading notes. And some double hammer-on things. So let's talk about this. How do you do that? You start low muted, and you do an upstroke, slide it up, and then down, and then up again, like that. And he does it between most of the soloing things. Where were we? We'll have to start from the beginning. And that last bit is a bend on the G6. So I bend with the second finger and then end off at the G5. And that's the first 4 measures. Continuing the solo off, measure 44, bit of a pickup from the last bit. It gets very messy there, and that last bit is how it ends in the tab, but it's not very musical sounding when you break it down, so you can do whatever you want there. Slow, starts off with this lovely pull-off thing. You know, this Chuck Berry. Sliding up into the high part. Lots of pedaling on that open D. Runtime slow, whole thing. So remember the pedaling on the D up in the high part. ending with 3 more or less open strings. Measure 49 is the bridge. That's the part where he goes, "Here is the love that you won't understand." And then back into the riff. We have the F sharp he starts off with, goes into the lyric, "Love that you won't understand." There's some rhythmic muted stuff, 3 strums in that timing before going into a G. And then we're doing this sliding from 7 to 9. And the very last one, we slide up to the 12th fret and end it off with a muted down and upstroke. All of these end with muted up and down strokes. This first one ends with 2, all the other ones are going to end with 4, like that. So let's do that one again. There's a love that you won't understand. Then we go into the F sharp, and it's rushed this time. It's not like we hear in the pre-chorus. Do that again. Then we go into the G again. Familiar part. And we add in 4 before going into the F sharp minor again, and we do the familiar pre-chorus thing. Before ending off with the G, and we change things up here by doing the slides on the 3rd to 5th fret on the bottom top 2 strings here. Just changing it up a bit. So let's play through it fast so you kind of get an overall idea of it, and then slow again. And slow. Measure 59 is the interlude, and that's where Mayer's singing scat over some vocal riffs like this. And so on. And the instrumental riff right before that changes a bit. Just before he goes into that riff part. And all he's doing is the first part, and then he's adding this kind of thing where we're going like on the D, 5, and 7. And then once in measure 59, we start it like this. And then we settle into the lick. And the whole time he's going da 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 da, and that kind of thing. So measure 59 starts out like this, slow. Ending with that bend on the E8 here. And that's just the bit of a difference before we settle into what the lick is actually going to sound like and repeat on. So after that we go back to the E5 here with the thumb. And that's played like this, thumb. Here we're going to take our first finger, bar the G and the B strings at the 5th fret. Give them a little bit of a stretch. Then we're going to upstroke those same 2 notes. And then down 7th fret, fretting right above it. Bend it up a bit, upstroke it, bend them back down, strike them again, and go back to the 5th fret, and then back down. After a while, the faster you play it, it's actually easier. And you can kind of get messy and hit the odd note here and there. After that, we repeat that again. That's the part where he's like, na 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 na. He plays this part. So it's a bit different. And then we go back into the same old. And that ends it off. He ends it off with the da 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 da. So that's that. Maybe I'll just play through it fast once and then slow. And again, the ending is, before we have a little bit of a pause in the next part. So that whole thing's slow. And then the band takes a break and we go into the final solo outro. Measure 68 is the start of the outro solo, which is based heavily on Jimi Hendrix's The Power of Soul. If you want to Google that and have a listen to the inspiration behind it. It starts with 3 pickup notes. But you're going to want to start these on an upstroke so that you're able to do downstrokes at the start of each of the measures as you repeat them. Sounds like this to speed. And I'm going to explain how the first finger is doing a lot of anchoring in order to make this lick playable at a higher speed. So starting off with those 3 pickup notes in 68, we go into this. Let's measure 68 one more time. Measure 70 is where things start repeating. So one more time. So let me just talk about the first finger anchoring. So we're going to play the G5 with the first finger. We're going to slide it down and then bring it back up to the D5. So see how your first finger did all those notes? So your first finger is doing a lot in here, and that's going to be able to allow you to play this fast, and it's all alternate picking for the most part. You might have to practice that move a bit, but it's the sliding of this first finger and anchoring it everywhere that makes the lick possible. Let's just get in a little repeating mode by using the 3 pickup notes. Yeah, I challenge anyone to find a better way to play that. And you can kind of see the way his first finger is leaping around everywhere. That's what he does. You also want to resist the temptation to down pick everything. That works at moderate speeds. I just did downstrokes there, but you can really get it ripping fast if you double pick, like alternate pick everything. And this lick gets pretty fast when he starts getting up the tempo. So one more time, those 2 last measures where everything is the same is. And then the very last one. And then we're getting into a bend on the B8. In the middle of measure 72, we have this. Another one of the famous Mayer open string solo techniques. So we have this part. Interesting. Continuing with measure 76, this one's extended enough and slow enough to teach in real time. And I've added an overdrive just so the notes sing out a bit more. And you'll hear a rotary effect clicked on to measure 77. So 76 sounds like this. Rotary effect makes it sound nice. So a couple rakes. So a rake is when you're muting and you're just strumming down and stopping at the note you want to bend. Very bluesy effect. Now we're clicking the rotary effect on in measure 77. Measure 80, things really start to heat up. We have this. So we're pedaling between the G12 and the B10. Nice big bend on the B13, there we go. So that's easy enough to follow along in the tab. Then we have some octave bending on the 13th fret of the B and the 10th fret of the high E. So we're bending the B note, B string, into the same pitch as the fretted 10th fret of the high E. So, and the neat thing about that is you're going to be picking it first with a downstroke, and then up, down, which means you got to start the next one on an upstroke, and then down, up, and then the next one is a downstroke. So you're going to alternate ups and downs on this 13th fret note. I'll try to do it slow to show you what I mean. And sometimes instead of doing a double note on the high E, I'll double pump the bend. And then we end off with a nice, that's the open strings on the open D, open G, and then the 13th fret and 12th fret of the B. So I'll play through it slow. Measure 85 starts off some palm muting. Ends off some palm muting. So we have this. So I'm going to take the rotary and the overdrive off just so you can hear what's happening in this particular part. Because that's a tricky little move. So we're starting off by barring the first finger from the 5th fret of the D all the way down. Thumb is on the 5th fret of the low E. And we start off by hitting that. And then we rake down. And as we're raking down, we're going to try and sound the last bottom notes and hammer on from B5 to B7. If you can deaden this note on the G string, that would be good. And then we're going to do a rake down, and and then we're going to do a rake up. And as we're raking up, we're going to pull off on the B string and do a hammer-on the D7. I'll just repeat that. So downstroke and upstroke. So on the tab, I'm showing where you're hitting the bass note, raking down, and then going back to the bass note. But in practice, when you hear this like rapid fire, you're only hearing this is the last note. This is an A. This is an A. It kind of gets buried in the mix. So that's a typical Mayer move. We've seen this in a bunch of his solos. The secret is the downward rake and the upward rake. And you're not even picking this last note. It's a hammer-on out of nowhere. And it's really helpful if you can only sound certain notes, like the bottom two, and mute everything else with your palm or with your fretting hand. And then we end off with some muted stuff, G7, G5, high E8, and we're ready for the next step. Continuing with measure 89. So palm muting at the start. There's a little bit of a slide from the G8 to the 7, and then the next part. And then that last bit is very improv-y and sloppy. It sounds like a double pick on the 7th fret of the E and then 5th fret, but it's really just one. The one thing I do is slide down for that final bend for the 3rd finger to get some strength under it. Measure 93 has some neat technique in it. What we're doing is we're going to be flicking the pickup selector back and forth between the outer positions, and we're going to slide a single note up with one hand, and it creates almost like a pseudo wah effect. Sounds like this. And he pauses for some rakes in between there and then goes back to the flicking. And let's just go over that really quick. We're coming out of this bend, and then we're going from the G7 and then we're stopping the flicking, we're raking at the G16 and 18. So follow the tab. It's a very interesting technique. Jimi Hendrix has used this in Voodoo Child, among other tunes, and it's the first time I've seen Mayer do it. Coming out of measure 98, we're done with the pickup selector stuff. We've got it in the neck pickup position, and we're going to revisit the Jimi Hendrix riff, although it's a tiny bit different this time, to end the song off. And that ends it. The riff, the Jimi riff, is like this the last time we hear it. let's talk about the sounds we're going to be using. This is just an Eric Johnson signature Strat, a Tech 21 power amp with no preamp section, and the coloring is provided by Fractal Audio AXFX 2. And we've got three sounds. We've got the kind of slightly dirty, glassy sound. And we're going for a Jimi Hendrix sound. I played around with the two rocks, couldn't make it work, the models I had access to. So we went right to the Marshalls and the Jimi Hendrix sound. And then we have a solo sound. Just a bit more bite. There's a distortion pedal in front. And then we have that rotary sound. It's a really nice coloring. I'm really glad he used it in the second half of the outro solo. And that's about it. We have a liquid foot controller controlling everything. And with the AXFX, you can have different scenes. So it's the same patch, but the different scenes I set up, I can have different pedals on or off, depending on what I want. So that's kind of how I'm switching between it all. And we're going to be using the pickup in the neck position, and we're going to be wanting to leave it there for the whole song. So we finished the song, you're all good to go, but here's some homework for you. If you dig around, there's another version of this on the web where he's teaching it at a Berklee Clinic. So I've tabbed the solo part of this at the tail end of the tablature here for the song, and it's something like this. There's just all kinds of things you can do with this riff, and when he was at the Berklee Clinic, he just made all this neat stuff up. The high stuff was especially interesting. This lick is a pretty well-known blues lick. You hear it in a lot of other songs. So there's tons you can do with it. So check out the last bit of this tab. It's got the solo for the Berklee version of this. And that neat thing at the beginning, where he does an extra muted strumming to get into the end of the accents for those measures. Check it out. That's your homework. And lastly, how the hell do you sing over this thing and play that blues riff at the same time? The easiest answer is you just do it, but I can kind of help how you do it. And the problem is no one really talks about this, how you sing and play at the same time. The secret seems to be the ability to subdivide beats. Drummers are great at singing and playing at the same time. Guitarists, not so much. Pianists are good too because they already have right-left hand syncopation. So what you can practice is counting out loud as you do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you have trouble with that, just start with 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. And add the 3 and 4 when you're ready. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because the problem is your brain is used to, always tap your foot too. Always tap your foot. Your brain is used to this subdivision of rhythms. Because you can play the song. The problem is, now you're asking it to add another subdivision of beats. And that's like, got half a smile and zero brains, or whatever he says. So that's a different rhythm from the 1, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da. And at the same time, you're playing this. I got half a smile and zero shame. So what you're wanting to do is get your brain used to that subdivision of rhythms. Here's the guitar one down here. Boom, ba da boom, ba. Here's the vocal up here. Da 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 da. And you're going to merge them together. The da 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 da. And the whole time you should be tapping your foot 4/4 for every one of the beats. So one way to do that is slow everything down as slow as you can go. I got half the smile and zero shame. Got a reflection with, and as you can see, I'm not used to doing it slow, so I can't even do it slow. But the performance tempo, I seem to be able to do it. So this is something that you can try. Got a reflection of a different name. Got a brand new blues I can't explain. Who did you think I was? And then you just speed it up as your brain gets used to those subdivisions, because as you slow it down, you can kind of see them coming and prepare for it. So that's pretty much it. That's the just do it portion of learning how to sing and play at the same time. And John Mayer's stuff is not conducive to singing and playing at the same time. I think it's one of the things I like about him. These kinds of songs, like are easy to play. Like, this, not so easy. So good luck with that, and I'll probably do another video on singing and playing that looks at different styles, or particularly other Mayer songs that are hard to play and sing at the same time. Thanks for watching.